Hello, and welcome to the Creative Mojo podcast. This is my podcast all about my love of crafting, particularly knitting, and this is episode 54. Thank you all so much for joining me today. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back as always. Today is Saturday, October 27th, I believe, and I'm coming to you as I always do from my home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm yet again today in a different room, the ongoing search for decent lighting. I'm in my husband's office, studio today, office basically, and trying it out with a different direction of some natural light. So I'm so glad to be talking to you all today. It's been a couple of weeks again since my last episode, and I have some projects to share with you. I have one finished object that I'm going to show you and talk about a bit, and then I have a couple works in progress and a couple of planned new cast-ons, and I'll just tell you right up front today, it's all about sweaters. That's the thing I've wanted to knit kind of all year, and I've been really enjoying sweater knitting and want to cast on all the sweaters. I have a ton of them in my favorites list on Ravelry, and I routinely go through my stash and pick out stuff, and I've done some swatching, and I've got one completed sweater and a couple of sweaters, one near completion and another one partway through, and plans for a couple more, and it just doesn't stop. So I haven't actually knit on any of my other projects since I last spoke with you. I have totally neglected any sock knitting, even though we are running a KAL in the Creative Mojo Ravelry group that is a year-long knit-along with patterned socks, and we've had a lot of fantastic entries in there, and I do look at them all longingly, and I do actually miss sock knitting, and I do kind of look at my sock stash, my sock yarn stash, and I think about new cast-ons, and I have a couple of socks, as you know from previous episodes, that are in the works, but I just find at the end of the day they end up right now not being really what I want to knit on, because I'm just eager to finish sweaters I'm working on and get new sweaters started. And I think part of what's driving that is that I've now that I've got a half a dozen sweaters that I'm quite happy with, that fit pretty well and are comfortable, and that I like to wear, and that the weather has turned it to fall. I'm finding that I'm wearing those sweaters quite a lot. On average, I'm probably wearing a hand knit sweater to work at least one day a week, and so that's really driving my desire to have more sweaters and wear more sweaters, and also I think it's also driven a bit by the more sweaters I knit, the better I understand about sweater knitting and what I want to work with, what kinds of yarns I'm enjoying using, what kinds of yarns feel like they work best for sweaters and for sweaters for me particularly, and understanding construction better, right? To getting a better sense of what fits on me, what kind of styles look good on me, but also, you know, sort of the ways that sweater constructions work and work with different kinds of yarns and stuff. So the first sweater that I'm going to talk to you about today is a really interesting example of learning things about sweater construction. And I'm going to preface this by saying this is, so far to date, even including sweaters that didn't end up fitting me, that were too big, or were not a great style for me, or whatever, didn't end up fitting great at the end of the day, a couple of sweaters that I knit very early in my knitting career, even despite all of those experiences, this is by far and away the most frustrating garment that I have knit, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why. This is my finished object. This is the Birkin sweater by Caitlin Hunter. It's a pattern that was published originally in, it's got a me here hanging off it there. It's published in Lane Magazine, issue 2, I believe, and I knit it out of Brooklyn Tweed, not Shelter, but Loft, which is the fingering weight, and I can't remember all the color names now, and I don't have them with me, but it's on my Ravelry page. There's a Ravelry page for this sweater. I haven't got any finished object pictures up yet, but I will. But the yarns I use, the colors and stuff are all there. So, and I'll tell you, so this is, as I said, this is the most frustrating sweater I have ever made, and the reason for it is because it is beautiful. I mean, that yoke is just beautiful. It's my first real experience with color work, other than a tiny little bit of color work I put in, you know, I think fingerless mitts once or twice, and maybe a hat. I did a little bit of color. Oh yeah, I've done a couple of hats with small amounts of color work, but this is my first large amount of color work, and certainly my first color work garment. I love the colors that I chose and how they kind of play together, and I love how it looked. I was worried that it was pretty lumpy, bumpy, but it blocked out pretty nicely. Yeah, and it is just a beautiful sweater. It is this colorwork yoke is both a stunning work of art in its design and horribly flawed. And here's the problem with the sweater. It fits great when I put it on if I don't move in it. And like I think I've read in other projects, and I wish I had done a lot of this sort of research before I had knit this, but I did cast this on, at least a year ago probably now. So there wasn't as much feedback, and B, I didn't spend as much time looking at other people's notes and stuff. But since that time, I both heard some other podcasters talk about it, and I've read lots of people's feedback on Ravelry, realizing I'm far and away not the only person who has knit this sweater, or not the only person. Yeah, there's like 2,000 projects. I'm definitely not the only person who knit it. I'm not the only person who had the problems that I'm having. I think a lot of people have had these problems with this sweater. So, excuse me, what it is that the design of this yoke, both the fact that it's a very long yoke, I think that's about at least 10 inches in a yoke, which is a very deep yoke, colorwork yoke. I think a lot of times colorwork yokes are a little bit shallower. It's 3-color work through most of it, except for this, the leaves up top here, which is just 2 colors. But all the rest of it, that center part there, is all basically 3-color work, which means you're carrying 2 other colors of yarn across the back, which gives it a pretty dense, you'll see my little tiny bits of ends sticking out there on the inside, but gives it a pretty dense feel to the fabric where you're carrying along 2 other yarns and knitting 3-color work. And really the problem with it is I found it's the combination of the length of the yoke, and that from here, let me show you this, from here to here, so that whole good at least 6 inches, maybe closer to 8 inches of the yoke has no increases built into the design. Now normally I think colorwork yoke sweaters, you'd find that there are increases built in on a regular basis every bit. I mean, it's maybe every inch or every 1.5 inches or something like that. There's a normal set of increases that continue all the way through the yoke from when it begins to basically where you're separating for the sleeves. And you can even see how this is where, so there's increases up here, there's increases here. The next set of increases are way down here. And you can see how it kind of comes out when all of a sudden you do rapid bunch of increases here. I think there's one more set below this, if I remember correctly. So this whole section of the shoulder, of the top of the arm and the shoulder, which sits here on your body, has no increases in it. It's a straight tube, and not only is it a straight tube, it's a straight tube of fairly dense fabric with that 3-color work. So when, like I said, it looks lovely when I wear it with my arms down. The minute I raise my arms, the neck of the shoulder, the neck of the sweater, because of how constricted it is in this section here, the neck pops up, the shoulders pop up kind of like this, and it's really uncomfortable. I mean, it feels right around this part of my body. It feels tight, it feels constricted, it feels like a like a straitjacket a bit. And sorry, I have a bit of a frog in my throat again today, as always. It's really not comfortable to wear, as I said, so because I put it on and I've walked around the house in it, and I found that very quickly, very easily, if I do any kind of arm lifting movements, I'm having to tug on the sweater to pull it down, to put it back into place. I can't imagine, struggling with it all day long at work. Would be very frustrating. And it's such a shame because, like I said, it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful design. It's such a, the yarn is so pretty. It was not cheap, as you know, if you've ever used Brooklyn tweed yarn. Like this was a fairly pricey sweater, and it drives me crazy that I can't wear it. Now, I have seen a couple of people who have actually steeked down the front of theirs and put a button band in and made it a cardigan instead of a pullover. And I'm seriously considering that. Even though I've never done any steeks on a sweater before, and that would be a whole new thing for me, I'm still seriously considering it because I want to be able to wear it. I don't want to have spent all this time and effort on this sweater that I can't wear because it's too uncomfortable the way that it fits on my body. And the whole rest of the fit is great. It's actually quite, it's A-line because, again, of those bunches of rapid increases that happen down here. It kind of floats away a bit, like the shape of it. The sleeves turned out a bit longer than I had thought they were. Like I was aiming for more of a bracelet length, like here-ish, and they do come more to just above my watch band, but that's okay. It still looks, the sleeves look, the length of them looks good. It's a split hem at the bottom, slightly longer in the back than the front, as you can see. So it floats away nicely from the body. If only, you know, and I did read on Ravelry some people's notes that another modification that a few people did was they put a little bit more space in between some of these color work, some of the motifs, and put in some increases where, because really there kind of should be, so there's those increases there, there should be another set of increases here, and there should be another set of increases here, and that would probably make all the difference in the world. I suppose if the way you were built is that you are very wide across this part of your shoulders and then not, I mean, you can see how my body's built, right? That it comes out here. It doesn't go straight down. Now, if you had broad shoulders and then the rest of you sort of a very narrow frame, I think if you were very thin and you had thin arms and the widest part of you really was here, it might sit quite nicely on you. But for most people, there's going to be a slope in this part of your body, and the design really needs to match that to be comfortable. So anyway, this is my sad finished object because like I said, I had it hanging up on the wall in our bedroom since I finished it about a week and a half ago. Since I finished blocking it, it took about 2.5 days to dry, just because it's so dense through here. And I soaked it really hard, and I actually blocked the heck out of it through the yoke as well. I really pinned it out and really tried to stretch it out through there, and it still feels constricted in through here. So yeah, I said I've had it hanging up on the wall in my bedroom and been looking at it, and I finally took it down and put it into a drawer because looking at it was making me feel sad because I really want to wear it. So that is my finished object, and that is my little public service message for today, is that if you are going to knit the Birkin sweater, if you want to, it's not a difficult pattern, and it as written, and it like I said, it's so pretty, but really do think about the fit of this. And it isn't, as I said, it's not just the yarn I used, and it's not just the way I knit the color work, and it's not just my body. I've heard this repeatedly and seen it repeatedly throughout Instagram and videos on YouTube and Ravelry. So it's a shame. And I know Caitlin Hunter is such a talented designer. You'll see in my planned sweater knitting, I have 2 other sweaters that I'm of Caitlin Hunter's that I'm really eager to give a try to, that I don't see that there are these kind of problems with. So it did burn me a little on how much I would trust colorwork yokes of hers again, although hopefully there's some, I would look at what those increase rates are in another pattern. But I mean, she's such a talented designer. She has such beautiful, her aesthetic is amazing, and I can see why so many people have knit so many of her designs. But this is a big wah-wah in my humble opinion. I'm sorry, Caitlin Hunter. I wish I had caught the issues with the sweater and thought about how to deal with it before I put all the work and money into it. Anyway, enough said about that. Wine. But so that's my finished object for today. Let's see, I have I have an almost finished object. This has been on the needles also for a while. This is something you will have seen before. And the yarn has rolled away. Oh, well, doesn't matter. This is my Weekender sweater by Andrea Mowry. It is, I am on the second sleeve, and it's all that's left of it is the second sleeve, and then weaving in some ends, and it will be done. This one is a behemoth. It was living in a project. I don't have a project bag big enough for the sweater anymore. And it's the combination of more of an Aran weight than a worsted weight yarn that I used. I used Beaver Slide Dry Goods in their 2-ply. It's 2-ply worsted is what it's called, but it actually knits up probably much closer to an Aran weight, and it is quite makes. And I went down a needle size to get gauge, so it is a very dense fabric. I don't mind that. It's going to be like a great big warm cozy sweatshirt. I've tried it on. It is oversized, but it looks nice still. And like I said, it's going to be the most fantastic big cozy sweatshirt style sweater. It will be great for spring and fall weather, where I can throw it on over another shirt, long sleeved t-shirt or something like that, and be quite warm outside with just this and a nice scarf, I think. So and he said that sleeve is done. There's just watching my yarn roll around on the floor down there. Those are all my sleeve increases. This sleeve it looks kind of short here, but that's because it's quite a dropped shoulder. The sleeve only starts about probably there on me. So they go right down to the wrist. And I've just started the second sleeve. This won't take very long. I've kind of had it on hold for about a week because it's heavy and bulky, and knitting the sleeve and turning the work all the time, I started hurting my shoulder a bit. So I'm stopped on this for a bit. Sorry, forgive me if you can hear a horn. Somebody's car alarm is going off outside. Oh well, I hate those car alarms. I don't know that if anybody actually ever looks to see if cars being stolen when they go off. They just go off and they're annoying. In my humble opinion. Anyway, yeah, so there's the body of it. I love this color. This color is so pretty. I think it's called Winterberry. As I said, it's not Brooklyn Tweed. It's Beaver Slide Dry Goods. This has been a lot of fun to knit. You knit this. It's reverse stockinette on the outside, but you knit it inside out. So you actually, and in the round, so you're just knitting all the way around. And then when you get up to the shoulders, where you do a 3 needle bind off up here on this ribbed section, you turn it inside out to do it. So, and it's meant to have this exposed seam on the outside of it like that. So, and then the sleeves are stockinette as opposed to reverse stockinette. And this also has a split hem and slightly longer in the back. So yeah, that should be done really soon. I had actually hoped to have it done by now, but as I said, I kind of put it on hold to work on another project, and because it's so heavy. But I gotta get back to it so that I can wear it sometime soon and get that on rotation in my wardrobe. The next sweater, as I said, it's all about the sweaters. I talked in my last episode about a couple of projects I was thinking about casting on, and one of them was the Utu, it's spelled U-T-U, sweater from Lane Magazine, also from issue number 2. It's this sweater, which is on the cover here. It's in fingering weight. It's a cardigan. It's a button-up cardigan, and it's designed for the designer's version is in a gradient. I'm knitting mine, I think, all in one color. I say I think because I only have 4 skeins of the yarn I'm using, which should be enough, I think. But if I were to run out, I do have another color. I'm using Woolen Boon, her classic sock, and I do have another color that would be a nice gradient. It's similar in tones, but it's got a little bit more color. It's a little more colors in it than this, this is Buffy. This color, it is predominantly, as you can see, cream, like a sort of a natural cream with these little pops, little tiny speckles of pops of color that are rust brown and sort of orange to brown and green. Predominantly it's brown and green. There's little bits of red and yellow, but I think those are the breakdowns probably of the colors that are in the brown and green. So It's so pretty, and I'm really enjoying this. Now I'm actually, this is a little bit of an experiment for me in terms of a fingering weight superwash merino nylon sweater. I've knit several superwash merino nylon sweaters that have turned out too big for me, partly because I knit them a little bit size bigger than I needed to, and I'm still wrestling with actually being confident in my size. I keep knitting myself things that are slightly too big for me, thinking I'm a little bigger than I am, I guess. But excuse me for all the water drinking. I'm very dry today. It's a it's a beautiful fall day here. Much more typical fall weather for us here than we had a few weeks at the beginning of the month. Now that it's the end of the month. But it's very windy today, and this time of year it gets dry and windy, and I'm just super parched, so hence all the water and the croaky throat. But anyway, so I went down a size in this from what I was knitting in the past, which was generally, so it's one size smaller, and it's a pretty dense gauge. I am using the recommended needle, I think. But I'm getting a pretty dense fabric, which I like. And I'm hoping that between having a bit denser fabric than what I bought, like it's a 3 millimeter, 3 or a 3.25, I can't remember which. I could look in the magazine that's conveniently right here and tell you what size I'm knitting it on. It is a 3 millimeter. Yes, so it's a US 2.5, which is a 3 millimeter needle, and it is which is probably a needle size down from what I've knit other fingering weight sweaters on before now, and like I said, and it's a slightly smaller size, knowing that it's going to grow, because that's the thing with superwash, is that I found that my superwash sweaters, they grow when I wash them, and this is going to grow a little tiny bit. I'm 100% sure of that, and I'm hoping that it will grow just to the point where it will fit nicely. I think it's going to fit fine in the sort of circumference, and probably grow more in length. So I actually intend to knit it to just the length, the beginning of the length that I'm comfortable with, and assume that it's going to add itself an inch in the way it grows when I wash it, because that's been my experience with other superwash yarns, is that they're growing at least an inch in length. So this is a top-down yoke construction cardigan. I'm almost to the separation for the sleeve, not quite. I think I have another 12 rows to go or something, but there's a and it's yoke as opposed to raglan. It's got this pretty little knit through the back loop twisted stitch cable leaf motif around the top of the neck all the way around. There's a very similar, not quite the same, but a very similar motif. It's a mid-length sleeve, and there's a lace motif on the sleeve when you get down there as well. And the rest of it is stockinette. It's got a very slim knit right on button band. I was looking at some buttons online last night. I gotta find, needs about, I think the pattern says 12 to 14 buttons. So, and I don't have that many of the size. I need the 15 millimeter, I think is the size of buttons I need. So I was looking at a bunch of buttons online on Etsy last night to order some buttons. So you do this motif, and then there are some increases, and I think I have one more set of increases to go before you divide for the sleeves. So, and I'm about, I would say 3/4 of the way through my first ball of yarn. I have this much left, which is probably about 25 grams now. I haven't weighed it recently, but I put in a marker when I reached the 50 grams. So the first part of the sweater to there did 50 grams, because I am at this point just ending with one ball of yarn. I often do, rather than, it's a little bit of the lazy person's way of alternating skeins with hand-dyed yarn, is that rather than alternate all the way through, I will wait until I'm closer to the end of a ball of yarn. And then I will alternate with the next ball, striping it in so that if there is any changes, which there very often are in hand-dyed yarn, if there are sort of tonal shifts from one to the other, they stripe in and they're not as evident, but I'm not alternating all the way through. Hasn't bit me on the bum yet, but it could, who knows? We'll find out. I love working with this yarn. As I said, this is Wool & Boon Classic in her 75-25 merino, superwash merino nylon, and this color is Buffy, and I just love it. I think that it's actually going to be a wonderful sort of neutral garment, but with these delicate little pops of color, which will make it match nicely with lots of different colors in my wardrobe. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying that. I've been working on this a lot. I cast this on last weekend? I think so. And I've been working on it for about a week and got that much done already. So yeah, well, I'm as I said, I'm really enjoying this. The designer of that sweater is, good thing I have the magazine here again. Anna Joanna. And yeah, from this Lane magazine. So those two sweaters that I just showed you are the two projects I'm currently working on. And then, as I said, I've got some future knitting and dream knitting. I have, so I talked on my last episode about the Kaylee cardigan from the Pom Pom quarterly anniversary issue. I don't have the magazine with me, but it's by Julia Farwell Clay is the designer of that, and I have swatched for this a good color representation. This is Cascade 220 worsted weight. I can't remember the color number of this, but it's this beautiful heathered, slightly heathered green, and good, I think, with gauge there. I haven't cast this on yet, and I don't know if I'll cast on immediately or not, but it is I think I may cast this one on when I finish the Weekender to have a worsted weight sweater on the go as well. A larger project that knits up a little faster, because the other ones are in a smaller gauge than that one. So the other two sweaters that I'm actively looking at and thinking about casting on, and I'm sure one of them will get cast on within the next week or two, are both Caitlin Hunter designs. Shock and surprise. She's a very successful designer these days. It was really interesting to watch. Christy Glassnit's Rhinebeck. Tell me about your Rhinebeck sweater video on YouTube. Seeing all of the beautiful sweaters that everyone's wearing, and so many Caitlin Hunter designs. She's definitely the really popular designer today. And as I said, I could totally see why. I have, I think, 4 other sweaters of hers in my queue because they're so pretty. So one of them I really, really want to knit, I've been looking at for a while, is the White Horse sweater. I'm afraid I don't have a picture of it here, but I will, it'll be in my show notes. There'll be a link to it, so you can pop on over and take a look at it. And it is knit out of a DK weight, and it is reverse stock. It is a sort of cabled and bobble and kind of feather and fan type of, I think there's cables in it, but it's a beautiful kind of closed lace work. Feather and fan I think of as a bit more sort of closed lace work, and bobbles and stuff through a yoke, and then reverse stockinette through the body. Again, you knit the rest of the body inside out and turn it around, and all in one color, all in one yarn, and so it doesn't seem to have the yoke problems that the Colorwork sweater had. And the yarn that I'm thinking about using is this Rowan Felted Tweed. I don't remember the name of this, and I don't have the ball band with me, the colorway name, but Rowan Felted Tweed, which is a DK weight. It is a bit thinner of a DK weight, but I think, if I remember correctly, I haven't used it in a long time, but I think it blooms up quite a bit. And I have a bunch of this in my stash. I love the sort of little tweedy, the tweed in it, the little neps and stuff. It actually feels very nice when it's knit up. It's got mohair blended right into the yarn. It has that lovely little halo. So this is my swatch. And I have a sweater's quantity plus more, I think, to be honest. I have quite a lot of this in my stash. And then I have another sweater's quantity in a sort of a dark blue of this. And then I have a bunch of single or double skeins as well. So I'm thinking of using the blue and some of the other colors that I have in 1 or 2 skeins and doing a color work, looking at some of Jennifer Stein Gass's patterns. That will probably not be something I cast on until well into the new year, but that's what I'm thinking of doing with the rest of the roan. But this I'm thinking of for the White Horse sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and it would be this side because that's the reverse stockinette through a predominant amount of the sweater. And I really like how this, I wasn't sure when I was knitting up this swatch. It's a little bit small at the moment, so I have to wash and block it and see what gauge I am actually getting. I suspect I could go up a needle size and probably get exactly on gauge, but because this is a slightly finer DK weight, I don't think I want to go up a needle size, and I don't think I'd want any looser area of a fabric than what I'm getting here. So my next step, I haven't washed and blocked this yet, is to wash and block it, see how it blooms, see how it stretches, and then if I'm still slightly, I think I'm about 2 stitches in my 4-inch swatch, so I think that's probably that's like a half a stitch per inch out. in width. I think I might be okay in row gauge, but anyway, I'll just compensate for that. I think probably what I will do is go up a size in the pattern, back to the size I was knitting for myself with sweaters that were all turning out a little too large. So I would probably go up a size in the sweater. It's meant to be a sweater that fits with a bit of ease anyway. I just don't want it to be too small. So that's gonna, I'm sure, get cast on sometime really soon because I've been dreaming about this for quite a while. And then the last one that I'm thinking about right now is the Zweig sweater. The Zweig sweater, also by Caitlin Hunter. I'm sure if you're on Instagram or Ravelry or watch podcasts or any of combination of those three, you've seen the Zweig sweater. Many people have knit it. It's beautiful. It seems to look good on everybody, and it seems to look good in so many different colors of yarn. And I looked at that for quite a while, and it's a yoke construction as well, but it is a lacework yoke. Airier, stretchier. Again, I haven't looked at what the increases are in it, but I'll take a look at that when I look at the pattern a little more closely. But I've been looking at the pictures of the sweater for ages online and wanting to knit one and thinking about, did I have anything in my stash that would work? And I actually thought about this yarn for it for a bit. But I like, when I look at the ones that, when I look at the finished objects on Ravelry and stuff, I tend to like most the ones that are slightly darker body and lighter in the lace up top. And there's a little tiny bit of color work as well. So I was, and then I contemplated, was I gonna buy some yarn for it? But I didn't really want to buy. I have so much sweater yarn in my stash, but almost, and it's a fingering weight design, and almost all the fingering weight that I have in my stash is more variegated than I want to use for this pattern. So I had looked through my stash, and then I had almost got to the place where I decided either I'm not going to knit this right now because I don't have the yarn, or I'm going to cave and go and buy yarn. And then I remembered that I have a couple of sweater quantities of the yarn that I knit this out of. The sweater that I'm wearing today is my Princess Fiona sweater. Speaking of sweaters that are too big for me, I love this sweater, but as you can see, it's pretty roomy. The shoulders come down here as opposed to up here. And this is big for a combination of a couple of reasons. One of which is the yarn is 50% merino. Is it 50%? Yeah. It's marine. It's skein yarn from Australia. It's a merino silk sport. This is the tag for this yarn here. It's a different color. It is 50% merino and 50% silk. It's so soft, very drapey, and it grew quite a bit. Plus, my gauge was not great. So when you get that, I was getting a slightly bigger gauge than called for in the pattern, and then it grew, and so now I have this lovely, soft, like buttery soft, cozy, but very oversized, sloppy looking sweater. I do wear this quite a lot. I wear it a lot at home. I do sometimes wear it to work when I don't need to worry about, looking. Sometimes in my job, I need to look professional, nicely professionally dressed for things. And sometimes I'm in rehearsals and rehearsal halls and stuff. And a lot of the time in that situation, it's more about comfort than it is about worrying about how I'm dressed. So I don't mind wearing this over jeans and a t-shirt or something at work in that kind of setting. But it isn't something that you can see. When I wash it, this does tighten up a little bit. Often I toss it in the dryer, I will admit, a little bit to shrink it up a tiny bit. But as I wear it, it stretches out, and you can see how much. So I have, as I said, I have a bunch of this yarn in my stash. I have 2 other sweater quantities. I had 2 others besides this color. And then I have some single skeins of it. And it is a sport weight, not a fingering weight, but it knits up very much. It easily knits up to the gauge of a fingering weight. And in fact, I realized I would like it to be at a tighter gauge a bit. I think that will help a little bit with the massive growth of the sweater and the pilling. It does tend to pill a bit too. So I pulled out what I had in my stash, and I realized I had this beautiful color this is called Savannah. See if you can, yeah, it's this like lovely, it's like beige, sort of oatmeal-y beige taupe. It's like that lovely beigey taupey color that's got that like hints of pink in it, into this sort of milk chocolate brown with, again, this has all got a slightly pinky undertone. You can kind of see the pinky undertone in it when I hold it there. But it's a beautiful, beige. And while it is variegated, it is more of a semi-solid than a super, well, it's pretty variegated, but it's variegated all in the same tones. And as with, I think it will knit up similar to how this did. So I think this will be fine. And I've got a bunch of this. So this is what I'm thinking I'm going to use for the body. And then I'm going to pair it for the lace section in the yoke with this one. And this color is, what's this one called? Barley. And if you can see, it's, again, it's that same, it's a lovely pale, oatmeal-y kind of color. It is also variegated, it is a variegated tonal for sure. There's a lighter and darker oatmeal in there. Goes beautifully with this. I think it'll be really pretty. This lined up with a very lovely neutral sweater that will go with lots of things. My only concern in terms of the yarn, well, no, not my only concern, but my concern about the yarn in terms of meterage is that because this is a sport weight, I only have 363 yards of this color. Looking at other people's projects, I think that this is going to be enough for the lace weight. If it's not, there's a little color work section above and a little color work section below, and I'm toying with using another color I have, which is called which is Rouge, and doing the color work because that also goes really nicely. So it would be those 3 colors, and that the color work sections, which are some little bands around the top and bottom, would be in those 2, and the lace would be sandwiched in the middle in that. And that will look really pretty too. So I'm sort of thinking that that's what I might do so as not to stress about the yardage of that. I have lots of this. So my other concern about using this yarn for that sweater is my adventure with this sweater and how much it bags and grows and drapes. And now I don't mind a little bit of that in this Viag. It's meant to be a slightly positive ease sweater and to have a little bit of drape to it. And I think that this yarn will work nicely for it, but I don't want it to grow as much as this. So I've decided, and interestingly, I started to do a swatch on this this morning with this yarn. I had some leftover in this colorway. And I started doing a swatch with the recommended needle size. And then I went and looked at my project page for this sweater. I realized it's exactly the same needle size as what I used on this. And the same gauge. And as I said, I got slightly more stitches per inch in my gauge in this than what was called for in that pattern, in either pattern. So I know that I'm going to be slightly above gauge in using the recommended needle size in this yarn. So I'm going to go down a needle size, and I'm also going to knit a slightly smaller size in this, knowing for sure it's going to grow a little bit. So I'm hoping that between going down a needle size and getting a slightly firmer fabric than this and knitting it with a little, originally a little bit less positive, with pretty much no positive ease is the size I've chosen. But then when I block the sweater, and it is going to for sure grow because this yarn grows, that will put the positive ease into it. So that is my plan for that. And that's all my knitting plans for the time being. I have a bunch of stuff on a chair here, and I'm afraid it's going to topple over, but no. As I said, it's been all about the sweaters. That's, I think, everything I'm going to talk about today. I do encourage you, I will, the next time I record, which should be, fingers crossed, in about 2 weeks, I will draw for oh no, I can't remember whether I have 1 or 2 draws left. I think I only have 1 draw left on our sock pattern sock cal, because I drew at the end of October. No, I drew at the end of August. Yes, so I'm at the end of October. So I do have 2. I have 1 at the end of October and another draw at the end of December. So I will do that draw shortly, and then my next recording I will announce the winner for it. I haven't decided for sure what that prize is going to be. I'm thinking maybe a couple of sock patterns or something. And yeah, so if you are still knitting pattern socks, all the rules are posted in the Cal threads for Creative Mojo on Ravelry. Pop over there and take a look, and you can knit as many pairs of pattern socks as you want throughout the year, as long as you started them before or after January 1st, and as long as you finish them before December 31st, they can be eligible, and they're eligible for the draw. If you've got a pair and you haven't put them in and you want to put them in now, they will be eligible for this next draw, and they will be eligible, if you don't win in this draw, for the one at the end of December. That's the end of the cow. So that's all for today. It's been really great to sit here and talk sweaters with you. I hope those of you who aren't sweater knitters weren't super bored by all of that. And if you're not sweater knitters and you get I was going to say, and you get a few minutes into this video and you want to just skip it, but if you're listening to this now, you've gone all the way to the end, so I don't know why I'm saying that now. Anyway, I hope I will maybe have some variety in projects, although I won't promise you anything, but when I talk to you next time. But in the meantime, happy knitting, and I will talk to you all soon.